When unboxing the kit, I already noticed that the panel lines on some of the seats are quite faint. Now they're not super deep and not really undeep, but just not good enough. If you're following my lead, I'm not, but if you're following it, that's pretty good. So I decided just to scribe them out a little bit more on the areas that I wanted to mask off later, so when putting on the masking tape I can still clearly see the panel line that I'm following and cut out the template. Before I wanted to start priming and painting the panels, I first also needed to apply a couple of pieces of photo etch to the doors for some decals or details on the speakers. I then sanded all of the parts that needed to be masked off and painted in multiple colors, which were pretty much all of them, with a 600 grid, making sure that I got all of the small nooks and crannies before I started applying the primer. I then applied a couple light coats of primer, let that cure for a bit, and started with the red inserts. Before any of the purists start screaming at their screen, I'm not going for the OEM color scheme on the interior. I'm going for something that I kind of made up myself, mixed and matched with a couple of different variations and generations of the Civic Type R, and just found something that I liked. Although I do really like the way that Honda designed the interior for the Type R, in this case with the body being painted yellow, a full red seat was a bit too much for me, so I decided just to tone it down a little bit more, give it a custom flair and touch, and do some reds on different places and just a little bit less, if you're following my lead. So those were all masked off in case you saw here for the doors. I also did some on the dashboard, which is also a custom design, so to speak, or just a custom color placement. Well, doesn't really matter. I just masked off all of the areas that I wanted to remain red, applied some black, let that cure, and then carefully started unmasking it before I could move on to adding more details. As far as I've seen so far during my research period on this car, the rear seats were just painted, or well, on the real car they're just black, not painted, fabric or leather, and I wanted to change that up a bit as the continuing theme is a black and red, so just a black rear seat would be a little bit too boring, so I added some red to finish up nicely and look great with the front seats in a similar sort of styling, just in a little bit different of a position. Now, as a throwback to some of the older Civic Type Rs, or just the Type Rs in general, I wanted the carpet to be red, as I kind of thought that would look cool, is something a little bit hidden from the outside, and more of a small touch on the interior if you actually look inside, so that was a really cool feature I thought would look good on this interior, specifically since I didn't go for the all-red front seats. Now on the door panels and the dashboard, I just didn't want to go for red and black. I also wanted to add some metallic blacks here and there to some trim pieces, some silver highlights here and there, but just sparingly, and also some gloss black for some other accented trim pieces, just to make it flow together nicely and not look like one black piece with a red insert. With all of the metallic black, or also known as gunmetal pieces now completed, I could move on to some of those silver touches, specifically a couple on the dashboard and also some on the seats. So you just saw me paint that silver piece on the seat first, and the insert pieces needs to be black. Now after painting it silver, I thought that was the way that it was supposed to look. It looked a bit weird, and after looking at some more reference photos, I was wrong, and Honda also thought that was a little bit weird, so the inserts on the inserts need to be black just to tone it down a little bit, and that looked a lot better. So just like the rest of the interior, the steering wheel also got a custom colorway. Now there is actually red and black on the steering wheel, but I decided to add a little bit more red. The standard one has some small red inserts on the inside on the bottom piece, and I made those a little bit bigger. With pretty much most, if not all, of the detail painting now completed, I could move on to adding all of the decals to the dashboard and the other interior pieces, and then start adding a couple more details, and that is the seat belts. Now in the kit there are some photo etch ones. I'm not using those. I explained why in the unboxing, and I'm just using some fabric red ones from my web shop, thescalemodelingchannel.com. If you're interested, feel free to check it out. I have multiple items for sale, like these seat belts, a lot of paints, kits, and other supplies for the scale model car builder. The pedals that were included in the kit are some photo etch pieces. The main base plate is just one part. I just glued the first edge down, let the glue cure. I could then fold them over, add the other insert pieces on top, which are exactly the same as the main piece, and then you have your pedals. For the seats, as you've seen before, there is a base and then there is a top back piece, or the backrest piece for that thing. It is made into two pieces. I first laid down and glued the base in place, and then once that was steady, I could move on to gluing the seat back on top of it and moving on to the final assembly of the interior, and that is pretty much where it stops here. Now I'm going to be putting the door cards and the dashboard in place just for the photos and to give you an idea of the interior and the final look. But in the actual kit build, these parts do not need to be glued together on the base plate for the interior. They need to be put into the body before assembly. So in the next episode you will see these pieces separate again, as this is just a mock-up, and in the next episode I will be putting the dashboard into the body, and the door panels will also be glued to the inside of the body as well. And with that said, this is it for the interior. I want to thank all my patrons and channel members. If you're interested in helping the channel out, I will be leaving links in the description down below to my Patreon or to become a channel member. Also, what do you think of my colorway for the interior? Do you like this one, or would you rather have the standard Type R version?